Hi there, everybody. How's it going with you? Are you ready for the end of September, believe it or not, when your weather changes and everything? I mean, I can't figure out where this year has gone. I was looking at something the other day and realized that it's almost been a year since Hurricane Ian, and I swear it does not seem like that. It's like, where has this time gone? Anyway, that's beside the point. For those of you who went through Ian, you probably may or may not be saying the same thing, but it's just like, I don't understand. This year has just gone by so fast. But anyway, ignoring all of that. Um, I read or heard of a story that apparently, or maybe apocryphal, about Mark Twain, but it goes something along this line. Um, that Twain got pneumonia, and the doctor came to visit him and happened to notice that Twain was drinking and smoking, and the doctor said, "Well, how much do you drink a day?" And Twain said, "Oh, moderate drinker, about a bottle." And the doctor says, "Well, how much do you smoke a day?" And he says, "Oh, no, let's say 10 cigars or whatever it was." And the doctor thought a minute and said, "Okay, I tell you what. If you give up the drinking and the smoking for a short period of time, I can guarantee you that you'll get well." Twain agreed to do that, and sure enough, after a while, he got better. A few months later, Twain encountered a woman who had pneumonia, and suggested to her that she give up smoking and drinking. And she looked at him and says, "Well, I don't smoke and I don't drink." She died. Twain later reported that he believed that she died from the pneumonia because she didn't have anything to give up. Now, how does that connect to anything now? I'm looking at this from the standpoint of somewhat, if you will, from the quote, the classical or the popular definition of insanity. You do something over and over again and you expect different results. Or maybe you say something to the effect of, why do I keep ending up doing these things? I keep dating the wrong people, or I keep having the same thing happen to me. I can never get a break or anything else like that. So what I'm looking at from the standpoint is that we tend to go through and do certain things in a sense on a consistent behavior. We respond the same way to different things. Let's just take, weight. You always give in to certain things, even though you know that that's a problem. Or maybe you're going out dating the same people and either you keep getting into trouble and you can't figure out how to make any changes. What are you giving up, in a sense, to make a change, to make things better? Because it would seem to stand to reason anyway, like the definition of insanity, you keep doing the same thing. If you keep making the same responses, if you keep behaving the same way, if you're trying to get somebody to date, if you keep going to meet people at the same places, you're going to keep meeting the people that you've met before. You might have to go someplace else to meet somebody different. If you're, say, going into school and saying, "Well, I can't study," or "I can't do this," or "I can't get a better grade," are you doing the same thing that you did last week, 10 years ago, or whatever? I would be willing to bet that basically what you're doing is you're reacting to your stimulus, whatever that is that you're trying to change, and the same behaviors that you've been doing for years. And even though those behaviors aren't working, you're still not willing to give them up. So what's the difference, in a sense, even though, it's somewhat silly to think that the woman who was dying because she didn't give up smoking and drinking when she didn't do it. But the concept here, I think, is that when you don't give up or don't make those changes, why do you keep thinking you're going to get different results? So let's just say I can't lose weight, or I can't stop drinking, or I can't stop yelling at somebody, or I can't study, or I can't get good grades in school. Okay, but I would be willing to bet if we sat down and had a long conversation that pretty much you're doing the same thing that you've always done. And I say, "Well, why don't you try this?" And you'll say, "Well, I tried that and then it didn't work." "Why don't you try? Oh, that's too hard. I don't want to do that. I don't have this." So that whenever you have got an option of trying something new or different, you've got some reason why you can't do it or why you shouldn't do it. You might be saying something like, "I can't do it. I've tried it before." When did you try it before? How long did you try it before? Did you try it before when you were like 10, 15 years ago? You're not the same person then. You were not the same person then that you are right now. You have different motivations. You have different skills. You have different thoughts about something. If you tried something maybe when you were in high school and you're now, trying to go through college, and you've got a different motivation than you had when you were in high school. Why do you think you're going to go through the same thing and have exactly the same results? Besides which, you've got a different set of options now and more things to rely on that you could go to or try out than you did when you were in high school. And if you're saying, "Well, I've tried to stop drinking, I've tried to lose weight, I've tried to do this, I've tried to do that before, and it's never worked," are you doing exactly the same things and the same method Again, if you keep doing the same things, why do you expect anything to change? So you might need to think in terms of, as the story with Mark Twain, what are you willing to give up to see if there's going to be a difference? Maybe you're willing to give up the story you're telling yourself about you can't do this. Maybe when it comes to alcohol, maybe you're trying to stop drinking because other people tell you to, but you really don't want to, and you're not willing to give it up. If that's the case, then don't even bother trying. If you're not willing to do it, if you're trying to lose weight and you don't want to give up X, whatever that may be, let's just say potato chips or something like that. Is there a way you can possibly keep the potato chips but do something different so that you're not necessarily giving up that one thing, but you're making changes in some other ways? So in other words, what I'm trying to say here, hopefully that you're picking up on, I hope, without hitting you over the head, is that when humans try and make their behaviors different, they tend to, if you will, tell the same stories. They go through and repeat things over and over. It's like putting a movie on repeat. In a sense, I suppose you could say it's like doing Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet. It's going to be the same thing for when Shakespeare did it, as we might have it at West Side Story. We keep telling the same stories, and yet we expect somehow to have a different ending. I'd be willing to bet that most of you either A, aren't really sure that you want that particular change, or B, aren't sure that you can make those behavior changes to accomplish that change. In other words, you're not sure that you can do whatever you need to do to actually lose the weight. And if you're telling yourself, well, I have to be perfect, I have to stop eating potato chips or whatever all the time and never eat them again as long as I live, that's not true. It's definitely not true. But if you're telling yourself those kinds of stories, you're not going to make those changes. So if you think in terms of what is it that you're willing to give up? What is it that you may not necessarily be willing to give up, but what behavior are you willing to change to try and see whether something will work out differently? What story are you willing to tell yourself that you are capable, that you are possibly can do things, whereas before you're telling yourself the story that you can't? Are you willing to give up those old stories? And for this case, you have to be willing to say that I can do this. I may not know how to do it yet, but I can do this. So in other words, are you willing to give up and try something new? Now, granted, this might seem like it's a little rambling, and some of you may think I'm just sort of like going crazy or something like that, but I want you to stop and think about it, that yeah, you're probably repeating some behavior because you're not willing to give up an old story that you're willing to tell that you are telling yourself. I would suggest that you start thinking about those stories you're telling yourself and actually asking yourself if those stories really are true. Do you want them to be true? Is there something you could do to change them? It's just because something hasn't worked before doesn't mean that, it's going to continue to work for the rest of your life. You can make some changes. You might have to work at it, might have to get some outside help to help learn some skills or something, but you can make some changes. So I hope this was helpful. Please let me know if this made sense and if it was beneficial to anybody, or if you want to send it to somebody else because you think it might help them. I would appreciate your comments. And I challenge yourself this week to look at something and see, would you do any better on something if you tried something new? Let me know what happens. So we will see you later, and bye for now.